Morning and welcome to Thoughts and Updates for this week. It is just beginning to get much lighter as dawn is dawning on us here in cold, yet the snow has gone Scotland. Here in Kirkintilloch in the north, just northeast of Glasgow, it has been not quite as badly hit or affected by the snow as elsewhere. I happen to love the snow, so therefore quite disappointed that I haven't quite caught the amount that other places have. Some places I hear have got something like 4 or 5 feet worth. Certainly it would have been a boon to the tourist industry to have that up in places like Glen Shee, where the snowboarders and the skiers would have gone, and we would have had something like a little bit of an income coming from that. But of course, under a pandemic, there's not much opportunity for that. So this week, back on the writing and doing a bit and pieces, talking boys this week. I've been looking at Thor versus Ward, the bizarre exhibition bout between a guy 9 stone heavier than his opponent, which the result was not to be announced until Saturday. And I have to be honest, I don't know what the result is. I've got absolutely no interest whatsoever, but I'm very glad that Stephen Ward has come away not being damaged in any form. It was a bizarre fight. It was terrible. Anyway, we are still looking at overseas things during the course of the week. Lots of announcements from Matchroom for a very good series of events through February, March, April. Although the one announcement we haven't had so far is when Fury versus Joshua is going to happen, though we believe it's inked. So lots of good stuff. For Ringside Report, I've looked this morning at Nicky Booth and his death. It's the second one for Ringside Report of boxers that I have done that have ended up being obituaries, which is not so good. Booth died, we believe, of liver failure because of the demons outside the ring that he faced. So that'll be coming on stream during the course of the week. I've also concluded the Donald Trump in the White House, or the not so White House stuff with Agent Orange and Orangeade, though he's found himself locked in a cupboard so he could come back. And I've mused in my Kale Yard debate on the death penalty, as Trump has sent people to their death in a spate of federal executions that have not been seen in America for a considerable amount of time. Also, I have, for Scottish Football Supporters Association, been looking at doing a podcast for them, which is being managed by somebody else, which is great, and hopefully I'll get some kind of involvement in there. Looking forward to that very much, and expanding that kind of universe in terms of our campaigns. But I also have taken some time, because I'll come back to this, saying thank you to Lach Cameron for his stewardship of Ayr United as he sold the club, but also have mused upon Peter Lawwell coming back from Dubai with his single parent child, Mr. Andy Walker, at customs, trying to get through, based upon, of course, the Dubai, the ill-fated, stupid, idiotic, awful, terrible, misjudged, misguided trip that Celtic Football Club took to Dubai in the middle of a pandemic, and asking people to wear masks, socially distance, and behave off they trotted, and they have not ended up without their troubles to seek because of that. Also, for Fringe Review, I have put up my first of 2021, which is actually my last of 2020, which is Rapunzel with the National Theatre of Scotland. Got a couple that I watched during the course of this week that I'm going to do as well to get up. One from the Traverse and one from Space Online, their second festival of online performances, to take the place of what we are missing in terms of their input at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, a great platform for particularly young companies. So I also, in my blog, mused upon the loss of the Arches and the redevelopment of the Citizens Theatre in Glasgow. There are going to be changes in theatres all over the United Kingdom of that, I am quite sure, and there's every possibility we will lose some. The Citizens is something that is very much in my heart, and the Arches was too. So we lost the Arches a number of years ago because they removed their licence due to issues around a drug culture. and that meant they didn't have an income to support the theatre, which was wrong. Full stop. So what have I learned this week? Well, first of all, I learned a podcast from the Times that in a focus group of English voters that Boris Johnson is believed to be liked on the basis that he's just like an ordinary guy. What? This former Etonian, this privileged multi-millionaire is just like an ordinary guy. I think it's the first time I've come across in recent past the way in which people who have passed and who have perhaps behaved in a strange manner or not necessarily in a wholesome way have been seen as normal people. And I think that that is actually quite healthy. I don't think it's quite healthy that people will see Boris Johnson from his privileged upbringing and indeed his continued privileged behaviour is actually normal, but I can kind of understand, certainly in Scotland, Boris Johnson is seen for exactly what he is, an overprivileged twat who can't organise a sock drawer. But down south, he's a bumbling fool who's attempting to try and get his way through this pandemic the best way he can, which is actually by consistently and constantly making errors of judgment, having to change his mind, make U-turns and confuse people. And I have to be honest, I don't necessarily see that as a major criticism, because there is nobody who's coming out of this pandemic, unless you're Jacaranda Ahern down in New Zealand, who has managed to cover themselves in any real kind of glory. We have not really managed this as well as we could have, except nobody could have managed it better, in my opinion, because we didn't know what it was. So to be fulsome in our criticism of people who are trying to do their best, when people are breaking the rules all over the place, when people are making mistakes all the time. And again, one of my biggest bugbears is supermarkets, because I go into supermarkets and I see people wandering about without face masks on, who are challenging those that challenge them. And I think, what's it going to take? People, no, wait a minute, people do that. Is it no, we've got a pandemic. I don't know. What's it going to take? Can I argue with stupid? Done with that. So, the idea that Boris Johnson is an ordinary man came as a little bit of a surprise to me. What also came as a surprise is the selling of Ayr United Football Club to a new owner based in Scotland, who is a Scot and a very strong, I believe, and understand Ayr United supporter, with a tremendous number of possibilities being suggested as improvements to Somerset Park, our ground. Lachlan Cameron and his father before him, Donald Cameron, stewarded the club over the period from Bill Barr's years, who was in charge of the club in some of what would be described by others as the glory years, where we nearly got a new stadium, where we nearly got into the Premier League, and we nearly won a National Cup final. That nearliness was not his downfall. I have to be honest and say that I loved the fact that we ended up in a National Cup final, that we almost ended up in the Premier League, we almost got a new stadium, we played some highly attractive football, brought people to the club that we couldn't afford. Lachlan and his father Donald before him had to change the fortunes of the club, but also do it by ensuring the future of the club, like many chairmen all over Scotland have had to do. They've had to face reality. And that reality is that football, though it is a major part of Scotland, has not achieved as much as it had in the past, and also has an unfair structure at the core of it. This has been none more so obvious than the recent expose by Stenhousemuir's chairman, that at a recent meeting of members' clubs to discuss what things were happening, they were not allowed, they were muted from asking questions over the recent decision to suspend League One and League Two. I thought it was a members' organisation. Lachlan, of course, came with an American point of view. He's American, as was his father, and they have connections with Scotland because their family came from the coast, from the islands. And that connection was exceptionally strong. And unlike other Americans, Lachlan wore it. Donald was his father, Lachlan was his name. These were clear indications of a Scottish heritage. And at no time did he overplay it, but at all times did he wear it like his heart upon his sleeve. I got to know Lachlan not particularly well. I'm not going to claim that if I go to America he'll put me up for a fortnight, but what I would claim is that Lachlan Cameron saved Ayr United Football Club and received little or no praise for it during his stewardship because people wanted something better. Well, we now have somebody who is looking as though they're going to provide us with what they might claim is something better. What we hope is that they don't go back to the Bill Barr years where we overspend and we underachieve. No, the roller coaster ride is quite good for lower league clubs like mine. So I've written a thanks to Lachlan, which gratitude is not something that is in Scottish football often, but it is gratitude from somebody who saw close up how Lachlan operated and what he did for the club. And though we probably did not agree on absolutely everything, what I do think that we did agree on was that Ayr United Football Club, sitting at the heart of a community, is exactly where it ought to be. So, with the future assured, no game played this week because the game with Dundee was put off due to a waterlogged pitch, controversially. It's bye for me, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.